From a town run by children and immortals fighting in a swamp, to a zombie baby and a love-struck glass eater, this horror anthology has it all. We watched From a Whisper to a Scream, starring Vincent Price, today on Nothing Spookies. So I've been called out on my casual swearing. So
By who?
I'm gonna try and mime. A friend of the family who I said I was on a podcast when they were gonna listen to it, and then I guess word got back to my mom that I have a bit of a gutter mouth on the show.
Did you let your mom and this person know that the podcast used to have the word in it?
Oh yeah. I also told them that wasn't my idea, which is true, listeners. No, but I shouldn't be as boisterous with it.
Wow. I was talking to my mom the other day, and she said, I love the swearing. Keep it up.
Oh,
In fact, if anything, you can get nastier. So.
Okay. Well,
so this one's for you, Mom.
Well, Mama Kaz, this one's for you.
Mama Kaz?
Fuck!
My God, I need to start calling her that immediately.
No.
How have I not been calling her Mama Kaz her entire life?
I thought you did.
No!
Oh, okay.
That's amazing. I don't want to manifest anything. I don't want her to choke on a sandwich, though, so maybe I'll just do it on the down low. Anyway, welcome back, however you wish to self-identify, to Nothing Spookies!
Yeah!
Where we ask the question, the fright is this? It's the podcast where we go through an actor's filmography and choose the most anonymous and culturally untalked about movies that they've made and decide whether or not they've got a certain something or if they're just a whole lot of nothing. I'm Kaz Lesgard.
And I'm Jameson Rafter.
And today we're talking about one of the spookiest dudes to ever do it. For many people, their first introduction to the world of horror. A very baby's first boogeyman. He was creepy, but he was a friend to children. I don't know.
He was the gateway to creepy stuff.
He was.
Right?
He was our gateway monster man mash. I don't know. It's Vincent Price.
Yeah.
It's Vincent Price.
Yeah, a subject that I didn't know I wanted to talk about until you brought it up. Yeah, I'm actually really excited to go into this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we were talking about what we're going to do this year on Nothing Spooky. And yeah, I thought, what if we go like older? What if we like go like into like the archives of what horror used to be? And the names I threw out were, Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff. And then I realized, there's like the other era too, your Christopher Lees and your Peter Cushings. But I think we landed on Vincent Price as the man of the hour.
Yeah, well, we haven't talked about him yet before, which
we haven't.
Which really inspired me to, which really kind of okayed it for me.
Exactly.
There was like a bit of hesitation because it's always a crapshoot whenever we cover really old movies on the show, like between 11 Harrow House and Shockwaves and the like. But Vincent Price is just a subject that I think is going to be a lot of fun to delve into.
Yes, and we're really stretching ourselves here. We're going all the way back to the aged time of 1987.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Is Vincent Price lived a very long time. He lived well into his 90s. Yes, he started off being a host of ghouls and goblins, and then eventually he just aged into a living skeleton man. But
his wishes,
absolutely, yes, and he worked it. He worked it right up until the end of his career. Yeah, he's a cool ass motherfucking dude. Shit, damn, that one's for you, Mom. We'll talk about him, and the movie that we're discussing today, as I mentioned, is 1997's From a Whisper to a Scream, a movie that's impossible not to say in a Vincent Price voice. Like you can absolutely hear
From
him.
a whisper to a scream.
That's not too bad.
Thank you.
From a whisper to.
I feel like he's got one of those voices that
it doesn't sound like anyone else.
No, exactly. And like, you can do a Vincent Price impression, or you can do someone else's Vincent Price impression, and people just are going to accept it.
It's mostly you can mostly. I feel like I fall into the habit when I'm trying to do Vincent Price. I don't know who this character is. This is like an old actor, but it's like the voice that The Simpsons turned into that character who's the yes guy.
Yeah.
I feel like it's really hard for me not to slip into that when I'm trying to do Vincent Price.
Or the robot devil from Futurama.
Well, it's both Dan Castellaneta, so I imagine
he's drawing on something.
He can do a Vincent Price worth.
I'm sure he has once or twice.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking of the what is it? The Simpsons episode where Marge and Lisa make the Vincent Price egg decorating set.
Oh, yeah, and they call the hotline.
They call
right?
the hotline. It's like, if you are missing one of your arms, call my nephew Jody Price.
Yeah. That's right. And then at the end, he's like driving a bus, and he's like, give it some gas, Grandpa. Quiet, Jody.
Quiet, Jody.
You're not helping.
Yeah. And then John Madden comes on, talks about what a weird B-plot this was. It didn't make any sense.
Well...
good times.
Good talk, Cass. Thanks
Good
for
talk.
listening,
Well,
everybody.
thanks for listening, everybody. But Vincent Price, yes. Well, we will get into the man now. Obviously, Vincent Price was born in 1911, and his film career began in the 30s. So I'm not going to go through the entire filmography.
Thank God.
Obviously, I'm just going to do the hits. Of which there were many.
I will say that I'm very unfamiliar with his classic horror stuff, and I'm much more familiar with his sillier era of doing creepy, kooky stuff.
Well, I'll let you know, most of his horror movies were also pretty silly. That was kind of like the vibe that he lived in. Like even his more like serious horror movies that usually where he was playing like killers and whatever, like they're from like the 50s, right? So the people are taking things seriously, but also there's a clear rubber skeleton on a string, and that's like the monster of the entire movie.
But you have to convince us that it's actually a terrifying skeleton through acting.
But he could. That was the thing. That was Vincent Price's secret weapon, is that he could absolutely sell that plastic skeleton and know that was a creature from the depths of hell.
All right, tell me about this fella.
All right, so Vincent Price, actor, art collector, art historian, gourmet cook, and cookbook author.
Yeah.
He lived a full life. As I said, he was born in 1911 in St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah, that's crazy. I always thought he was British.
He has like some ancestry. I believe his ancestry is Welsh. Yeah, he is the youngest of 4 children. His father, Vincent Price, was the president of the National Candy Company, which is of course he became a master of horror with a terrifying backstory like that. Yeah, his dad was that, and his grandfather, Vincent Price.
Oh, so he's the third? Oh, interesting.
Okay, so his grandfather is Vincent Clarence Price. His dad is Vincent Leonard Price, and he is Vincent Leonard Price Jr.
Really?
Is what that is. Yes, his grandfather invented Dr. Price's baking powder, which is the first cream of tartar baking powder on the market, which secured the family fortune. So yeah, a little bit of a nepo baby, as we say in the current climate.
In the parlance of our time.
Parlance, thank you.
But for a guy who I'm going to assume most of his career is him like just hanging around mansions and castles.
Yes,
I kind of hope that he had a rich background.
Big empty mansions with lots of
brooding.
Yes, lots of hallways, lots of brooding. Exactly. He studied English and art history at Yale, but he soon became interested in the theater. And his acting career began in 1935 at Orson Welles' Mercury Theater. He was married 3 times. He has 2 children, inspirational speaker Victoria Price, and poet and writer Vincent Price. Yes, exactly. We're seeing a theme here going on here. Yes, exactly. Yes. Price was very supportive of his daughter when she came out as gay, and he was very for the gay community at a time when that wasn't the most popular thing to do. He was one of the first celebrities to speak out against the public fear of AIDS and HIV. He was a member of PFLAG, and according to several sources, including his daughter, he was very likely gay himself. That was just one of those things where times were different, and you had to kind of do things behind closed doors. Look, we can't hear it from the man himself because he's long dead, and I don't want to cast aspersions here on anyone's sexual preference or sexuality, but you don't say.
Yeah.
That guy might have liked men?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
If you've ever seen any kind of interview with him or any kind of off-the-cuff thing, it's like, it's like the whole, Liberace back in the day.
Yeah, exactly.
It's what a manly guy that was.
But again, I don't want to label him. He might have been bisexual. It's entirely possible. Anyway, he was a friend to the queers. His film career began in 1938. His very first movie, he was the lead role.
Oh, wow.
It was the romance film Service Deluxe.
Was that a porn?
This is nowadays that would be a porn title. Back then, that was just what you called movies. Weirdly, deluxe is 2 words.
Deluxe. Eh?
It's D, but the DE and then lux but the D isn't capitalized.
Okay.
So I don't know what to make of that. That must be some French pronunciation of whatever's going on there. Okay, so this filmography is going to jump around in years a bit because he did a lot of movies. He did a lot of, quote, straight, serious roles and, like, serious awards, dramas, and everything like that. We're not interested in that. We're interested in the horror. We want to get to the spooks.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump around. Technically, the first horror movie that he was ever in was in 1940, which is The Invisible Man Returns,
okay.
where he plays the Invisible Man. And looking at the plot synopsis of this, it's kind of a deceptive title because it is not the same Invisible Man from the original Invisible Man.
Okay.
This is just a different guy who also becomes invisible. But I guess the marketing team back then was all like, these rubes don't know what's what.
Public domain, maybe?
He's back. He's back. Also in 1940, he stars as the founder of Mormonism, Joseph Smith, in the biopic Brigham Young. Yeah, he was playing a lot of real-life people, or real life in quotes, I imagine. I don't know, Joseph Smith was a real person, right?
Not Mormon, I can either...
I know he...
Maybe he was, I think
maybe
he was the founder of it, right?
Maybe he wasn't. He was the prophet. He was the prophet of Mormon.
Right.
Everything I know about Mormonism, I know from Trey Parker and Matt Stone,
Yeah.
so I am not the person to ask about this. But Vincent Price played him in a movie, which is who you want to be playing the founder of your religion.
Sure, yeah. Very, puts everyone at ease, that guy.
Exactly, yeah. 1943, he's in the film The Son of Bernadette, which wins Jennifer Jones an Oscar for Best Actress. 1944, he's in the classic film noir Laura, which is about this dame named Laura. Oh, this gal, she's got gams for days, and all the guys are in love with her. Maybe enough to kill? Yes. That's a great black and white, not a detective story, but like a mystery story or whatever.
Like a whodunit?
I'll be perfectly honest. It's been a really long time since I've seen Laura. I just remember...
I'll have to wait for the next film noir festival.
There's a femme fatale. That's all I really remember.
Love a good femme fatale movie.
It's a classic film. It's directed by Otto Preminger, who we know on this podcast from the cinematic classic Skidoo.
Yeah. Can't believe I remember that.
We don't cover a lot of Ottos.
No.
1948, he plays the Invisible Man again, or I suppose he
returns as the Invisible Man.
He returns as... It's the return of the return in a very small cameo at the very end of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which is his first sort of silly horror movie.
Okay.
Yep. Kind of like set the table for what was to come. He's also in a big star-studded Three Musketeers adaptation. He, of course, plays the evil Cardinal Richelieu. This adaptation had Gene Kelly, Lana Turner, Angela Lansbury, lots of big names in that.
Wow.
1953. This is where the horror truly begins. This is where we get Vincent Price, genre star of this. His first real big horror movie outside of the Invisible Man films is House of Wax, which of course most people know from the remake with Paris Hilton. But it used to be a Vincent Price movie where he plays a disfigured wax sculptor who goes around and murders people and turns them into wax. This was a very early 3D movie, I remember. So yes. Then 1956, a horror movie for some people. He's in the famous adaptation of The Ten Commandments.
Okay.
A movie that so many people claim to watch every Easter. I have never seen it.
Oh, neither have I, but yeah, I think there was like that, like, I don't know, some station would have like a marathon of old biblical epics.
It always plays around that time.
Not in the Rafter household, I can tell you that much.
Not for me either. No, I prefer the book. 1957, he's in the Irwin Allen film, The Story of Mankind. Irwin Allen was like a big director of like great big disaster epics like The Towering Inferno and Poseidon Adventure. Story of Mankind it's like a courtroom drama that takes place in heaven or the afterlife, and it's basically like here's what mankind has done up until this point. Should they continue? And there's one on the they should side and there's one on they shouldn't side, and Vincent Price is the one on they shouldn't side, and he plays Old Scratch.
Oh,
the devil!
The devil himself.
Which I combed through his filmography. Surprisingly, that's the only time he's ever played the devil. Unless he's done it for like a cartoon or a voice or something like that. But, I mean, that makes sense. He's got a face that looks like the devil. He's got like the facial hair.
He's got the mustache and everything. Yeah.
Absolutely. 1958, another horror movie, the original that became probably better known for the remake that came out in the 80s, The Fly, which is not, 1953. They didn't have like the Cronenberg effects or whatever. I think
No,
I think
it
this
was just
dude,
like the concept of a guy with like a bug head. Right?
Yeah, he's got a big old fly head. He comes out, he's got a big old fly head and a fly arm.
Yeah,
and then his head is on the body of a fly, and it has a very famous closing image of the fly with the man's head caught in a spider's web going, help me, help me.
Yeah,
that's what everyone remembers from that. 1959, they must have thought that people had fly fever because the very next year, it's Return of the Fly. Pointedly, Vincent Price does not play the man who turns into the fly. He plays like his friend. He plays like his scientist friend.
So he's in the sequel, but he's as a different character.
No, he's back as the same character.
Oh, so he's all better now.
He's not. He's not the science. He's not the fly. I don't know. I guess now I have to go home and watch The Fly. Also in 1959, he makes 2 movies with schlockmaster William Castle. Have you ever heard of this guy?
Should I have?
He was known for having these cheapo horror movies that had like big gimmicks that would like spill over into the audience.
Oh, that guy. Okay.
Yeah. So the first one that he does in 1959 is House on Haunted Hill, which also had a remake. Every movie Vincent Price is in has a remake at some point.
You know what would make this movie better? Less Vincent Price.
Yeah. Well, he's dead.
Said no one.
Now, to be fair, when they remade House on Haunted Hill, they cast Jeffrey Rush, who was very clearly trying to play Vincent Price. He had like the mustache and everything. He wasn't doing like the voice or whatever, but he was styled after Vincent Price very much. And and like William Castle used to do things where it's like hand out vouchers in case you faint in the audience, and like mid theater, like he would
a guy in a rubber suit will come out and chase a woman out or something.
He'd put a skeleton on a string and it would like fly through the audience and everyone would so it was that sort of thing. Also in 1959, also a William Castle movie, he makes The Tingler.
Okay.
And the gimmick with this movie is that there's like some sort of like monster, some creature or whatever, like the Tingler. It's like a centipede thing or whatever. And William Castle put like some sort of rudimentary like massage units into every chair in the audience.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So he did like D-Box at Cineplex, like before that was a thing.
Yeah, you ever go to like Disney World and you do those like interactive theater experiences, and they'll have like some things jabbing at your back as you're trying to watch.
He was kind of
characters from A Bug's Life or something.
That was kind of the originator of it.
Okay.
And like it's like super old and hokey and whatever, and you can see clips of like Vincent Price like looking directly, like talking to a character in the movie and then turning to the screen like, the Tingler could be anywhere. It could be in your town. It could even be in this theater. And then like a bored like theater employee like hits a button and everyone
turns
goes
a crank
like,
really
oh,
slowly.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Grab some sheet metal. Yeah, that type of thing. Yeah. So yeah, those were the type of movies he was making. So yeah, that's one collaborator that he was working with. Collaborator that he would make a lot more movies with was the very next year in 1960. This is when he hooks up with Roger Corman. And they make a ton of movies together, a lot of which are based on public domain, Edgar Allan Poe type stories and whatnot. Not all, not exclusively. Some of them were original, but he made just like a whole whack of these.
That's a perfect marriage. Vincent Price, Roger Corman, Edgar Allan Poe. The gang's all here.
Boris Karloff and Peter Lorre were also in most of those movies as well. That was kind of like a trio for a while.
Yeah.
Like every year there would be like a new Roger Corman
a new joint
horror movie with those 3 dudes in it in some sort of combination. But yeah, 1960 he does House of Usher. 1961 he does Pit and the Pendulum. 1962 Tales of Terror, Tower of London, The Raven, The Haunted Palace, Mask of Red Death. These are all Corman joints.
Yeah.
Either he directed them or he produced them. 1964, he is in a film based on a short story from Richard Matheson called The Last Man on Earth.
Yep, that's the adaptation of I Am Legend. Correct?
I Am Legend. The original short story is called I Am Legend. So that's a movie that's been remade twice. And the stars of the movie in the order that they were released are Vincent Price, Charlton Heston, Will Smith. Obviously, the trifecta. The three leading men who just like naturally interchangeable in every film that they're in.
I remember watching that adaptation in high school. And
the Vincent Price one?
The Vincent Price one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, found it very boring.
Yes.
He's good in it.
I Am Legend with Will Smith, a pretty good movie.
And
honestly, kind of one of Will Smith's best performances.
Yes, until the end when
they fucked up the ending.
Yeah, when they took that fucking test screen audience and they had to dumb down the ending. Or no, change the ending.
They changed the ending.
Yeah. The Vincent Price one is accurate because it's like, oh, well, now he's the minority now.
Well, he's the monster.
Among the society of mutants or whatever. So he's their vampire. He's their werewolf. Yeah. He's their legend.
He is legend. Yes, indeed.
Get it?
Do you get it? Message 1966, starting in 1966. I didn't count how many episodes of this he's in, but we also have to mention he is in the Adam West Batman TV show.
Yes, as Eggman.
Egghead.
Egghead, yeah.
Egghead, yes. Whose supervillain power is eggs. Which I'm just realizing right now, is that what the Simpsons joke was about? Is that the egg connection? Wasn't even thinking about that.
I don't know, but
but he had like
he's who you think of when you think of that old Adam West Batman show.
Absolutely.
And how cheesy the dialogue was and all the puns they would come up with. Excellent. This is exquisite.
And it was basically just those two jokes. He found new ways of doing those two jokes over and over again.
Fuck, where can I watch the Adam West Batman show?
You gotta get it on.
You gotta get it on.
You gotta get it on Blu-ray. It's
really?
all tied up in like legal limbo.
Oh,
because Warner Brothers owns Batman, but I don't think they own the Adam West series.
Yeah, I think that was like an NBC thing.
It was like a big deal when it finally got released on physical media. It's like this is like the first time anyone can watch these in like 2 decades or something crazy like that. I would love to shell out the money one of these days to get those because those must be a blast. If I haven't said it on this podcast before, that was the show that I ran home after elementary school to watch because you had to run home.
Yeah,
because it was either always the first part of an episode or it was the cliffhanger.
Exactly.
You had to figure out how they got out of the giant cake.
And then afterwards, you would tune into the animated Batman show, which was a lot more serious than the one featuring actual actors in live action.
And I loved the animated series, but I came to it years after I watched the Adam West one, and as soon as I was getting into the animated series, I started asking myself, where's Egghead?
Yeah.
Where's he go? Where's King Tut? Where's all the classic villains? Where's Marcia, Queen of Diamonds?
Yeah, and then you're watching the Adam West one, and you're like, where's Two-Face? Where's Poison Ivy? Where's so-and-so, right?
But they got most of the big ones, yeah. Okay, 1968, he's in a movie with one of my favorite movie titles of all time, Witchfinder General.
Yeah, you told me about that
Which is just a very metal-sounding fucking title and everything like that. It sounds like a fucking like death metal album, Witchfinder General. 1969, he is in an Elvis Presley movie called The Trouble with Girls. I'll tell you what Elvis's trouble with girls were. Too old. His trouble with girls is they grew into women. Elvis liked them young.
Oh,
is what I was saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yes. Well, because Priscilla was like 14 when they met.
I didn't know.
Yeah, it was pretty gross.
Okay.
Funnily enough, he plays a character named Mr. Morality. I'm assuming Elvis didn't listen. Speaking of movies that everyone watches at Easter, he is in the weird as fuck Rankin Bass animated classic, Here Comes Peter Cottontail, which I definitely remembered watching on YTV growing up a couple of times. He plays the villainous January Q Irontail.
Oh.
Yeah, he was a bunny and he lost his tail, so he's got a little squeaky one in the background. I remember that. I mean, it's Vincent Price. I remember that voice. Also in 71, he's in one of his more memorable... I need to check this series out because I've heard very good things about it. He's in The Abominable Dr. Phibes.
Okay.
Which he plays the titular Dr. Phibes, who's like a mad scientist, and his wife dies in surgery, and so he makes it his life's mission to get horrifying revenge on the surgeons who failed to save her life.
Okay.
And I think he does horrible surgeries to their bodies or whatever. I'm not sure. The poster is a lady kissing what looks like a corpse or like a mummy or something. I don't know, but he's abominable. And much like The Fly, the world had Phibes fever because the very next year in 1972, Dr. Phibes rides again. I love that sequel naming.
Rides Again.
We don't get enough Rides Again.
No, we don't.
In films.
Yeah, enough with the rises, enough of the origins. Let's get with Rides Again.
We gotta ride. We gotta get.
Yeah.
They rode once. You gotta ride again. That's what you gotta do. Also in 1972, this is an interesting little footnote. He's on the classic Canadian TV show The Hilarious House of Frightenstein.
Yes. How? Why?
Which that show had like 130 episodes. They shot all of them over the space of 9 months.
That's insane.
Vincent Price appears on every episode.
Yeah, he does like the intro narration and the outro, right?
He shot all of his appearances in 4 days. Canadian TV. Yeah, that's how we did it. We had like 18 other shows we needed to get produced back then. We had to go.
My exposure to that was like back in college, just be drunk and high at like 1 in the morning.
An excellent show to watch at 1 in the morning.
Space Channel, and you're not ready to go to bed. It's like, what the hell is this garbage?
What are we doing?
And then at the end, it's Vincent Price to lend some credibility to
this. A little gravitas to whatever the hell. Okay, 1982. We're into the 80s here. We're into like the era where you and I were
a little bit more familiar.
We're breathing.
Where we were kicking our heyday.
Yeah, 1982, somewhat significant, that will come around to the end of his career, and you can already guess why. He's in a short film called Vincent, from a young, aspiring animator named Tim Burton. And if you've ever seen The Nightmare Before Christmas, you've probably seen this short film. It's included on most of the supplementary material in a lot of Tim Burton DVDs. This is like a 5 or 6 minute short, just about a little stop motion short about a creepy little boy named Vincent who wants to be Vincent Price, and of course he got his idol to narrate the thing, and that started well, I won't say like a fruitful career because they did only end up making one movie together, but we know what that is. We'll get to it because it's at the very end here. But also, and I do feel like this next thing that I'm about to mention is like, for pretty much everyone of our generation, the most significant credit on Vincent Price's entire career, and you can probably guess what it is, Jameson. It's Thriller.
Okay, yes, yeah.
That has to be it, right? Like that. I know for me anyway, that's probably the first time I ever heard Vincent Price or started to get an idea of who that was.
It's solidifying his status in pop culture history.
Yeah.
You know, he had the work history that's going to stand this test of time in, on the silver screen or what have you. But long after that, like, Thriller is going to be an anthem played at every Halloween party till like the heat death of the universe. And Vincent Price is going to be right there at the end, laughing his head off. To the fact that, like, we pay tribute to that with the end of our Halloween episodes. We include his iconic laugh. Yeah.
So don't say we haven't covered Vincent Price before. He's appeared on this episode many times.
We pay homage to him.
I mean, that evil laugh, that's got to be like that's one of the greatest evil laughs of all time.
Sure,
if not the greatest one. Like, it's just like no one can quite get like the my favorite part of it is always like it's not like the crescendo, but it's at the very end where it's all like
yeah,
like he goes crazy, and then he throws in like a little at the end, like he's like, you gotta wind down.
Yeah.
You can't end on a high note. You gotta end like on a little like.
Well, that's just years of acting that informed that decision. Good on him for doing that too. To have like a pop musician come up to him and say, like, Mr. Price, would you just lay down a vocal track for this at the tail end? We don't have to sing or anything, but we just, to lend more credence to the scary thing, let's get the scary guy involved on this too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Good on him for doing that.
I'm sure there must have been so many people have probably written about what happened when Vincent Price met and collaborated with Michael Jackson. I didn't read that in preparation for this episode, but I imagine there's probably like a few interesting stories about those two. Get those two jokers in a room together.
I mean, it sounds like he was such an absolute sweetheart who loved this stuff.
Yes.
This counterculture horror stuff, and he was really excited to do anything in that playground. Not so much because like he liked pushing buttons, but he just thought it was fun and exciting, and he was willing to share that joy with other people. So he sounded like a real good guy.
He loved to entertain people. I'm assuming, but like just based on like his career, I think he just enjoyed being out there and being his authentic self.
Yeah.
I say authentic self, even though I said earlier that he was probably most likely very closeted. But anyway, I digress. From one countercultural figure to another, we're from Michael Jackson to Scooby-Doo. 1985, he's in the short-lived television series The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, playing Vincent Van Ghoul.
Yeah. What the fuck is the story behind that?
I don't know. They gotta.
It's so weird because all right, here's my.
There has to be a new Scooby-Doo thing every 2 years, Jameson, by law.
All right, but Scooby-Doo to me is a bunch of young adults going around in a van,
meddling kids,
solving these crimes where the criminal is basically a dude putting on a Halloween costume and scaring people.
Yeah.
Introducing that Vincent Van Ghoul guy, that opened the door to no, there's actual supernatural shit going on.
Well,
here.
they're flipping it. It's right there in the title. They are now fighting actual ghosts.
Yeah.
They are actually going around. They opened a box. 13 ghosts got out, and they had to put them back in the box.
And he was like this Doctor Strange-esque sorcerer, master of the occult and mystic arts.
I think he lived in a crystal ball that they carried around, and sometimes he could come out of the crystal ball and manifest like an actual body, but most of the time he was just a head.
Yeah, and he had all the power in the world, but he sent Shaggy and Scooby and Daphne, but not Fred and Velma. For some reason.
I don't know where those two were.
Yeah.
Question mark. Yes, no, they were
But he just sent them out to do his legwork for him.
Yep.
And what the hell is this character doing in the Scooby-Doo that I know? And they got goddamn Vincent Price to do it.
They did.
I mean, Hanna-Barbera never shied away from doing voice impersonations of famous people, but they got the man for it.
I mean, to add insult to injury, it wasn't just that Fred and Velma weren't invited along; it's that they were replaced by Scrappy Doo.
Oh yeah,
and Flim Flam.
Flim Flam that was his name.
That was his name, Flim Flam, and an annoying little child of indeterminate race. I don't know. He had a tan. I don't know where he was supposed to. I don't know. I don't remember the pilot episode. I don't know if they picked him up in a bazaar or something. Yeah.
No, that was
this child is ours now.
That was definitely a thing that I didn't see on TV, but there was VHS tapes available where it was
a couple times,
they would have the first 5 episodes, but I would never find the first one that could explain everything.
Yeah, and that was a limited series that didn't last for very long. Notably, they only ever got around to capturing 12 of the 13 ghosts, which is why recently within the last, I want to say 6 or 7 years, because they also put out 2 Scooby-Doo original movies per year or whatever. They eventually got around to doing sort of the ending of that particular show. I believe
we forgot one.
I believe it is called The 13th Ghost of Scooby-Doo, and it does tie in. They finally let Fred and Velma come on the fucking trip now.
Who's this weird guy in the cape?
And Vincent Van Ghoul did come back, but obviously he was played by a sound-alike because he's quite dead. Yes, moving on. 1986. Here's another one. I think maybe this. You know what? I take it back. Maybe this actually comes before Thriller for me in terms of my Vincent Price origin story here.
Okay.
But he, of course, voices Professor Rattigan in The Great Mouse Detective.
Yep.
An undersung but still pretty damn good little Disney movie. It comes right before
the Renaissance,
the Renaissance.
Yeah.
It's 2 films before the Renaissance. They're still kind of working with the skeleton crew. They have you watch it and the pencil work is noticeably a little shabbier than it is in the big musicals, but still a very fun movie. And Vincent Price gives, of course, a fantastic villainous performance in that.
I imagine I know I've seen that movie a couple of times. I don't remember a thing from it, but I have to imagine he's still a standout. He's a highlight of that movie.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's not a musical, but he does get one of the only songs in it. He gets
the villain song.
He gets I believe it's called "The World's Greatest Criminal Mind." You got Disney Plus, right?
Yeah.
I'll
check it out.
That movie's like 55 minutes. You won't even burn an evening watching The Great Mouse Detective. It's pretty great. 1987. He's in our movie today, From a Whisper to a Scream. Wait, did we say?
Yes, we did.
We said what movie we're watching today,
we did,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's been so long ago. He's also in a drama called The Whales of August. Which he was literally. I looked at the poster for this. I watched the trailer for this. What it is Betty Davis and silent film star Lillian Gish, who are both like 95 and barely able to stand under their own power, play like sisters, and he plays like their
gentleman caller.
He plays their gentleman caller, next door neighbor or whatever, and it's like, yeah, it's the type of movie like your grandmother would take you to or whatever.
Not my grandma.
I only mention it because he got an Independent Spirit nomination for it. It's one of the few times he actually got nominated for anything.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, because he did a lot of genre work and he did a lot of character work. And he didn't really do any like showy type, like acting type stuff.
I know he has a star on the Walk of Fame.
He has two.
Yeah, I've seen him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got one for film and for television.
Yeah.
1988, I think you've mentioned this is a film you've seen before, Dead Heat.
Yeah, I wanted to watch that for one of our Halloween episodes, but I think one of the How Did This Get Made guys.
Probably
they covered
fair
that.
enough, yes.
Yeah, he plays surprise, he's the villain of that movie.
Yeah. Oh, man, spoilers.
That's a buddy cop movie where the premise is one of the cops dies, but he is brought back to life.
Yeah, it's the gruesome twosome of Treat Williams and Joe Piscopo.
Yeah.
Just burning off the screen.
I remember that movie. There's a part where, because the whole evil plan is the bad guys are going to like revive dead people or something like that. And at one point, just to inconvenience the cops, they bring like a bull carcass, whatever, back to life at a butcher shop, and they have to fight it. The movie's wild, man. We should cover it.
I should check that out. That should be a spooky watch for me later this month. And then 1990, his two final on-screen roles. He has a small role in a Dennis Hopper-directed film called Catch Fire, which seems to be something to do with assassins or hitmen or something. I'm not sure. But his final role in the flesh, of course, working again for Tim Burton in Edward Scissorhands as the man who invented Edward Scissorhands.
The kindly inventor,
Who I think he has like maybe just like a handful of lines. I don't even remember him like saying
I think
much.
he might have one monologue.
It's kind of a mostly silent performance, I feel, from him.
Well, certainly the opening where, he's building him and he has like the heart-shaped cookie that he brings up to him, and like everything you need to know about that that relationship and that character is right there, and it's a very tragic character, and I think it's a beautiful send-off for Vincent Price. And you know what? I'm not the biggest Tim Burton fan in the world, but that movie of his, that's
a masterpiece.
That's a high mark. Yeah,
an absolute masterpiece. And it's so funny that like in a career filled with playing creeps and weirdos and like the guy that you wouldn't want to get like quartered in a thing.
Here's a creepy weird movie, but he's so
sweet. Yeah, and he really doesn't have much screen time, but like he says so much just in like his eyes. Like he does a lot of facial acting in that, and so like I don't want Edward's dad to die.
Yeah.
He seems like an okay guy.
I'm getting a little choked up just thinking about that.
And he didn't make him hands.
Yeah,
and
that was the last thing.
But that weirdly isn't his final film credit, because his final credit is for an animated film called The Thief and the Cobbler.
That's right.
Yeah.
He was in that. Did they ever release that?
They did release that. I have a vivid memory of going to see this movie in the theaters.
Was it a trip?
It was a trip. Yeah. I remember it very distinctly. He recorded his dialogue long before, because this was like a famously tortured production where the guy had to like, the animator had to like he was sink so much of his own money into the production, and then right before it came out, Disney's Aladdin came out and kind of stole all of his thunder.
I mean, it was incredibly ambitious, and it took like a decade to complete.
Yes, and then unfortunately it got released by Miramax, and then they chopped it all to hell, and they released like a version and like
a rushed ending version.
The thief was always supposed to be a silent character, and then for the Miramax version, they got Jonathan Winters to record dialogue, even though the thief never opens his mouth, so it's all like Garfield dialogue and whatever. No. It's a famously terrible cut. There exists online like an original like director's cut of like what this guy wanted.
I might check that out actually.
Yeah, it's you know what? Like it's a fascinating movie. It's obviously a mess, but like you can tell that it's a mess because of producers.
Yeah.
It's not a mess because of like this director. The animation is gorgeous. And it's one last villainous role for him. He plays Zigzag, the royal vizier, who for some reason is the only character that speaks entirely in rhyme. But I do remember that. I remember his death scene. I believe he's eaten by crocodiles.
Okay.
It's a trip.
Nifty.
And that's it. And that's the Vincent Price protracted filmography.
The truncated version.
Truncated. Protracted means like the opposite. I don't know words very well. I don't know if you've picked up on this over the 5 years that we've been doing this podcast.
It's fine.
I a lot of the times I think words mean one thing, And it turns out I'm dumb. But that's it.
Yeah.
That's good. All right. So, we'll take a little break here. And then when we come back, we'll talk about 1987's From a Whisper to a Scream.
From a whisper to a scream.
Stay tuned. Don't touch that dial. Shit. Fuck.
Quiet, Jody. You're not helping.
Balls. Quiet, Jody. The Elizabeth Fry Society of Greater Vancouver is a charitable organization that supports some of society's most vulnerable populations, women, girls, and children at risk involved in or affected by the justice system. Their more than 24 programs work to break the cycle of poverty, addiction, mental illness, homelessness, and crime. Their clients range from newborns to senior citizens. Most live in poverty. Some are homeless. Virtually all of them are at risk of becoming involved or affected by the justice system. eFry's programs and services help address their challenges, build life skills, and create positive options for the future. Donations help in a variety of ways, from baby care kits with diapers and wipes to personal belongings for the homeless. To make a donation, visit the link in our show notes or visit efry.com/donate now.
Rolling.
What? This is how it starts.
What an honor! What an honorable tribute we're paying to the late great Vincent Price. Throwing in a Limp Bizkit.
Oh my God!
And we're back.
We're back. From a whisper to a scream. Now, Jameson, you and I are no strangers on this podcast to movies with more than one title.
Yeah.
This is the rare instance where this movie was filmed under the title From a Whisper to a Scream. Then when it was released in U.S. theaters, it was given a different title. Okay. But then when it was put onto physical media, they went, actually, we were probably right the first time, and they changed the title back to From a Whisper to a Scream, basically solidifying that no one would ever watch their movie. Because what the fuck are we even looking for?
Right.
But when it was released in U.S. theaters, it was given the new title of The Offspring.
Oh, we're the offspring of this town. Because
I guess that makes a certain amount of sense. I mean, there's one story in particular that does literally have offspring, but I don't know. It's not really a title that works. But yeah, they changed the title, and they also changed the opening.
It really doesn't work for an anthology movie.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, they changed the title, and they also changed the opening slightly. The version we watched had like spooky music, but in the theatrical version, it opened with yeah da 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 da. All right, it's a stupid joke.
Yeah.
Hey, getting ready to play some Crazy Taxi. Are you ready? Here we go. I could have done. That was the other one I could have done, yes. But, yes, From a Whisper to a Scream is directed by Jeff Burr, who, this is his debut film, and he must have thought pretty fucking highly of himself. Because did you notice the opening credits of this movie? Every credit gets, like, the same font, but when it comes to a film by Jeff Burr, he fucking comes in and it has his fucking like
swirled signature.
His he does it in
cursive.
Cursive, yeah. He does like the big like flowery like it's like he came in and like fucking signed it himself like he was fucking Samuel Coleridge or some bullshit. I don't know. It was all like, all right, buddy. Okay.
Well, with a movie,
this is movie number one.
With movie title as pretentious as From a Whisper to a Scream, I'm not surprised.
Right. But yes, this was his first movie, and then he went on to have a pretty solid run of directing sequels to other people's horror movies.
Okay.
Starting in 1989 with Stepfather 2, then Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, Puppet Master 4, Puppet Master 5, and finally Pumpkinhead 2 Blood Wings. And would it surprise you to learn, Jameson, that other than Stepfather 2, I have seen all of those movies?
No, not surprised at all.
In fact, I'm pretty sure it was the same video store when I was living in my dad's basement in Calgary, where I went on a real horror movie VHS kick. This is when you could still rent VHSs. And I definitely remember renting the first 5 Puppet Masters. I definitely remember renting the 2 Pumpkinhead movies. I did not realize until I was doing research for this episode that they were all done by the same guy, but there was like a month where I watched all of these Burr titles. He's also directed movies such as Eddie Presley, which is about an Elvis impersonator. It is a movie that, for some reason, stars Bruce Campbell and Quentin Tarantino.
Wow.
All right.
Future episode potential there.
Yeah, potentially. Other titles that he's directed include... He worked a lot for Full Moon.
Yes.
So he's worked with Charles Band and those people. He's done a lot of those. I mean, those were the Puppet Master movies are from. But yeah, he's got other titles like Night of the Scarecrow, The Werewolf Reborn,
Rides Again.
Mil Mascaras versus the Aztec Mummy.
Okay.
And my personal favorite title, Johnny Misto, Boy Wizard.
Okay.
Which I looked it up. And that came out in 1997, so quite a few years before Harry Potter came out. I think maybe Jeff Burr's got a little lawsuit on his hands. But anyway, that's who directed this film.
Yeah.
Shall we?
These films.
These films, yes, because if we haven't said it yet, this is the classic horror tradition of the horror anthology film, like your Tales from the Crypt or your Creep Show. Or even some more recent, like Trick or Treat. You ever see that one?
Yeah, I saw Trick or Treat.
That's a good one, yeah. This is like a
and
classic.
And it's a true anthology because there's like the wraparound between
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, sort of a loose story that kind of flows and ties all of these together. It's not just a collection of short films all one after the other.
We've never covered an anthology film before,
No,
have we?
we tried that American Breakdown movie, but that was just a collection of short films.
Yes, that wasn't an anthology movie.
Yeah.
That was someone tricking us into thinking that was trickery.
Yeah,
what that was.
But no, this is our first go at a true anthology movie. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
And
how we do this.
And who better to lead us through it than Vincent Price himself? He was the king. I believe. I mean, he must have done like several of these.
There was a point when it clued into me that this was an anthology because I didn't know that going into this movie, and then when I found out that's what this was, I was like, "This is an anthology? Oh fuck yeah, this is gonna be awesome!" Wait a second, this episode's gonna be fucking impossible for us to recount.
We just gotta be concise. We can't spend too much time on one story because we do have like 5 different narratives going on technically at all at the same time.
But like when it comes to anthologies, you know that there's gonna be good ones and bad ones.
There's always a sucky one. Yeah, there's always one that's not as good as the other one. I'm interested to think
just
which
wait
one you
15 minutes and like the next one's gonna come along and hopefully be a little bit better.
Show you something.
And hopefully each one of them is like tonally different. Bring something different to the table. That's all I'm gonna say. On that side.
I mean, the anthology, the horror anthology films that I like and have seen, and certainly, this film definitely follows that same sort of structure, with one exception. And obviously, we'll talk about all of these. But what I liked about the things that are sort of drawing inspiration from like the old EC Comics. Horror comics, like back when like superheroes were like illegal or whatever they were, is that they're always about like the biggest pieces of shit who get their comeuppance, and that's largely what this is, with one exception. But it's great because it's all like, I don't want to watch an entire movie with this guy. This guy's an asshole.
Yeah.
But with this, it's all like, I only got to pay attention for like 20 minutes, and then something horrible is going to happen to him at the very end, and he's going to deserve it. And then that'll be it, and then we'll move on to the next one. Yeah. So yeah, it's great. I love a good horror anthology. There's lots of bad ones.
Yes.
And it sounds like maybe you think this is one of them.
We're gonna go into it.
Okay.
But kicking things off, we'll talk about like sort of the wraparound sequences here. So
it opens very straight.
Yes.
I don't know what to think of the opening shot of this movie. It's okay. So in the broadest terms,
it's a dream sequence.
It's a dream. God, there's so many dream sequences. Yeah. There are so many dream sequences in this movie.
Yeah.
So
this is just sort of a heads up, guys.
Yeah. You don't really know what to expect. So like we open with like a woman in a wedding dress fixing her makeup and
getting ready. Yep. And door opens and like all this dry ice fills the room and her husband-to-be walks in and I'm just like, oh, this is looking cheesy as hell. Hell yeah.
They're happy and they're in like loving marital bliss, and then like snap cut.
No, she's getting executed.
She's getting the lethal injection. She's in the chair. We eventually learn more about this character, but it is a very jarring opening because it's all like, what's happening? I don't know what's going on, but no, she's in the chair. She's surrounded by reporters and other people of the in the prison, including the warden. Do you recognize this guy?
Yes, I know from playing Elaine's dad on Seinfeld in one episode.
That's right, he did
Lawrence
do
Tierney.
that. Yeah, Lawrence Tierney. Yes, who of course,
whose last name kind of like says it all. He is
pretty much.
He is a pretty notoriously creepy and crazy actor to have around.
I haven't heard any specifically creepy stories, but I know
he's a very off-putting man.
He's a very off-putting man. The two things that I know him from are, of course, Reservoir Dogs, where he plays Joe, but he also has a very memorable one-episode role in The Simpsons as Dan Brodka, the security guard.
Yeah.
Listen, kid, if I wanted someone to blow smoke up my ass, I'd go home with a pack of cigarettes and a short length of hose. And
you're gonna step foot in my store again, you'll be saying Christmas in Juvenile Hall. Capiche? You
understand? Everything except capiche.
That's twice now that we've mentioned The Simpsons.
It's going to come up.
Bits. We got one more.
No, but I do remember hearing that on that episode of The Simpsons, he's kind of famously the most difficult guest they ever had to work. Like, he came in, he was immediately grumpy. He didn't get it. He didn't get what the joke was.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, he has like the first line in this movie, and it was quite alarming because I wasn't expecting to see him. I'm like, oh, the thing.
Yeah.
The thing is here.
Yeah. Famously for Seinfeld, he was so off-putting that Jerry and Jason Alexander said, like, we never want to work with this guy again. And Larry David, whenever he was feuding with the actors, he always threatened to write an episode where Elaine's dad comes back. Anyways, that lady gets executed, but as they're filling her full of the poison, she leans over to one of the reporters and creepily says, "Good night." And I'm wondering, what the fuck's going on with there? And then, then she dies. And we follow that reporter as she goes to this stately manor or just a large farmhouse.
This reporter's character's name is Beth Chandler. She is I wrote down some character names. She's played by Academy Award nominee Susan Tyrrell, who's an actor I've always really liked. She's really good in John Waters' Crybaby. She's really good in an early, very violent Paul Verhoeven movie called Flesh and Blood. Yeah, she's great. She's just, every time she's in a movie, you're like, oh, she's going to bring some chaos.
Yeah. So she goes to the house. We see from the outside that it's all lit up and it's very nice. She goes inside and it's immediately dark and decrepit inside.
It looks
like a fire was just put out in there.
It looks like a haunted house at like the Peony. It looks like the walls are too close together.
Mm-hmm.
She's
it's
crouching
all peeling
through.
and everything. Yeah, the furniture's all dusty. And
so
grimy.
she goes up to like what looks like a stately manor. We later find out this is a library.
Yeah.
Question mark? I don't know if it's a public library. It might be a private library, but I couldn't.
I mean, I have to imagine it's like some historical society heritage building of the town of Oldsfield, Tennessee, which is where this movie takes place.
Indeed.
And she's there to interview
the primary villain, the town.
The villain of the movie itself is the town itself.
It's very Stephen King.
Yeah.
Is this. There's an evil town and everyone is cursed.
Yeah, evil seeps through the atmosphere and, it follows people to commit these heinous acts. And she's there to interview the librarian, who turns out to be the uncle of the executed woman, who is played by, you guessed it, Vincent Price.
Who I'm sure has a character name, but I didn't.
Julius
White.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. That's right, of course, yes. In a role that I think originally was offered to Max von Sydow, which also would have worked, but you know what? Vincent Price is more fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And he's like the librarian or whatnot, and the reporter said, like, I just came from your niece's execution. That you weren't at, by the way.
Yeah, and her crimes were like, she murdered someone at 7 years old and then just kept on killing people until she was finally caught at age 30.
7 to 32.
Something like that, yeah. And I'm like, how? But whatever.
Yeah, and
he says, like, it's the town of Oldsfield.
It wasn't her, it was the town the entire time I
wrote.
There's
a sinister it's in the air.
Its very foundation is built on human suffering.
Yeah.
It's one of the
and I'll tell you why. And so he
tell you why over the course of four different tales.
Yeah.
And he looks at the camera, and you're coming to... No, he doesn't do that. But,
yeah, he pulls out a book. Actually, I wrote down this line.
Yeah.
Pulls out a book, and like,
I wrote this down too.
He's just like, here's like, what is that, a diary? It's not a diary, it's a journal.
All right, a little defensive there.
Okay there, honey.
No one was asking.
Diary?
No, it's a journal.
It's not a diary, it's a journal. That's
Shut up, it's
that's
not.
What a diary is.
It's a journal, god damn it. And he retells the story of this one dude. I wish these tales had titles.
They do have titles. They're just
they
not,
do? Okay.
They're just not within the movie itself. Okay. But if you look on IMDb, they are actually split up into different story titles. I believe this one is named after the titular character of this. So this first one is just
Stanley.
called Stanley. So the first story we're being told is just called Stanley, and it follows a character named Stanley Burnside, who's a bit of a problem.
Yeah. From the outset, he's just this lonely loser.
Well, you're getting ahead of yourself because once again opens with a no context dream sequence that doesn't establish anything, and like the chronology of it is really weird too. So the very first thing we see in this story is we see a woman hanging from a noose, and then this guy walks in and immediately starts giving her fellatio.
Yeah, he goes down on her, and then she puts his hands on the back of on his head. He wakes up from that nightmare, looks over, and sees that same lady as a bloody corpse in a body bag. And then he wakes up from that. So it's
a nightmare within a nightmare. They pulled a Nicolas Cage Wicker Man on us.
I wrote down that this guy's name should be To Fake Out Stanley.
That's a good one. You really razzed him.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then the next day, again, it's like, because these are like such short stories, and they don't... You know what would have helped here is if, like, leading into the story, there was just like a little bit of Vincent Price narration. It's all like, there was this man, his name's Stanley Burnside. This was his whole deal. He lived in a house with his sister, and he worked at this place.
Yeah,
and it's all
the
like,
most
okay,
unassuming man you'd ever meet.
Yeah, and eventually we learn that through watching like the thing, but it takes a couple of scenes before we're able to like connect A to B or whatever.
Yeah. So this guy is like a real emotionally stunted guy. Doesn't seem to have any friends except for that one Cousin Eddie type.
He's got like work friends. Yeah. We see that after he wakes up from his nightmare, he's throwing a work barbecue at his place, which you might think would lend him some credibility, but like we a couple scenes later, people are shit talking him at work. It's all like, did he just throw a fucking barbecue at his house and invite everyone at work? Kind of seems like an okay guy. I mean, we will find out that he's not.
Absolutely not.
He is absolutely not an okay guy.
And he is pining after this lady that works at the same, warehouse job that he has, Grace.
Yes.
He's got eyes for her. He
only has eyes
for her. But she brushes him off. She doesn't have any. Actually, she's kind of a stone cold bitch, but she's just not interested in him. But he will not be deterred.
I should mention Stanley is played by the great Clu Gulager. Just one of the all-time names to say in any context, but just like a classic character actor, been around for years. Probably best known in the horror community for one of the best zombie movies ever made, The Return of the Living Dead. Love that guy. And he's playing he's playing a man with some problems. Yeah, shall we say? He lives with a woman again. It took me several scenes before I figured out who this woman is.
Well, it's his sister.
It is his sister, but in the opening scene that we see her, he's helping her into a bathtub full of ice because I think she has like rheumatism or some sort of thing, and she needs to bring her body temperature down. But they're very familiar with each other. They're very codependent. Yeah. It's a very creepy relationship. I got confused in this introductory scene of the sister because I might have misheard this, but I was almost certain that he referred to her as mother at one point.
I think he just mentions mother at one point.
He might have mentioned mother at one point. I thought maybe he was doing that weird thing where that fucking Mike Pence does, where he refers to his wife as mother.
Oh yeah, no woman shall tempt me, kind of thing.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know, but no, this is his sister. This is his biological sister, and
right.
yeah, they're pretty codependent. I mean, she is an invalid, and she needs him
constantly.
She needs
yeah.
his help,
Mm-hmm.
and that's obviously weighing on him.
Yeah,
emotionally.
He's been doing this his whole life.
Yeah.
Anyways, he finally musters up the courage to ask Grace out for a dinner date, which is just an awkward time for everyone. There's a point where he has this sort of a daydream where Grace just starts bleeding from her mouth. And
that's at the dinner.
That's at the dinner.
Well, I think, this is where, like, the opening really confused me, because, like, that led me to think that these are, like, nightmares he's having. Spoiler alert, he kills Grace.
Yeah.
That after the murder, but I think he just has, like, bloody fantasies about her from the beginning. I think he's just a psychopath.
Yeah.
He was in love with her. He thinks that he's in love with her, but what he really wants to do is make her head bleed.
Yeah,
and,
something
spoiler alert, he does both of those
He does,
things.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, on the drive home.
From BJ's Family Restaurant.
Want to have a date, like no expectations or anything like that. But
and Grace, like, clearly said yes to this date for, like, the free meal.
Exactly.
That was the only reason she, like, is even remotely humoring this guy at all. Because you can tell that she's not into him.
Mm-hmm.
But look, lady, if you're not into him, just say no.
Just say no. Let him down gently.
And if you don't go on the date, then he can't moy you in a few minutes.
Yeah,
so,
there's none of that. I'm very flattered, but I'm sorry, I'm just not into you, and I'd want to let you. There's none of that from her. She's very pointed saying, like, you're gross or something like that.
I don't know what you expect, but why don't you just take me home before you embarrass yourself anymore?
I'm sorry, Grace.
Take me home, Burnside. You just don't have it.
And
then he forces himself on her.
Well, they park in a car, and, like, he tries making awkward small talk. He says, "My mama liked yams," which is a line I wrote down. There's no context to that.
No quicker way to a woman's heart.
And then he says, like, "I wrote some song lyrics. I wrote a song about you," and then he murders her, and then he sings the song. I'm thinking, like, man, she dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, really.
Woo, these lyrics, not good.
Your eyes
Need another pass at these, Stanley.
Your eyes like the sky.
Your
hair is long.
Your hair is long is what I wrote down. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Your skin is white. I love you. That's what it is. Yeah.
So he murders her, and then he just dumps her on the side of the road. We never see him wipe down the body from any prints or anything.
It was the 80s. No one checked for fingerprints back then.
Do they have call records from the 80s? I'm pretty sure the cops can look up and see.
Got 15.
The last phone call that she received was from you, so...
We got 15 minutes here, James. We can't think about this type of stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot more to get into with this.
You have to just assume that the police are inherently corrupt and they didn't do any looking into this woman's death.
So the next day at work, they announce her death, and his eyes go bug-eyed in the most sort of like, oh, gee, that's a shock. And then that night, after her funeral, he breaks into
after her ceremony.
He breaks...
Or wake or
Or wake,
whatever.
He breaks into the church after hours, and he has sex with the corpse. He rapes the corpse.
Now, he shouldn't do that. I'm gonna take a strong stance in the sense that he shouldn't have done that. However, why did they just leave the body in the church, in the casket, with the casket lid open, and anyone could just walk in there? I'm fairly certain after, like, the wake or whatever, they generally bury the body, is what they do.
It's not going anywhere, so they'll get it in the morning.
It's either that or, like, the wake was the next day, and they were setting up for it. Still, though... That's a dead body. You gotta keep that shit on ice. I don't care if she's full of formaldehyde or whatever. That's a rotting corpse. You can't just leave that out.
Anyways, we had one of our fucking trademark rape sequences in the movies we cover. We're becoming the gross podcast, Kaz.
Yes, but this one was necrophilia, so there's a little extra spice on the... Wait, we're becoming the gross podcast? No one tell them. Right. No one tell Tim.
Anyways, we fade to 9 months later, and when I saw the 9 months later, my first reaction was, oh, fuck,
That's where this is going.
No!
Yeah. Of course it is. Yeah, why? What else would it be?
Yeah, so 9 months later, he's gotten off scot-free, and this is the night he decides he's had enough of his sister, so he decides...
Who's really coming on strong.
Yeah.
Like, because he's been...
did the whole whore makeup job on herself to look nice for him and everything.
And, like, props to this actress who spends most of this short scene completely naked. Like, she's an older lady, and not only does she have to be, like...
Come to think of it, it's the only pair of tits we see in this movie.
Yeah.
An old lady's tits.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
well, because you shouldn't like that. No, I mean, you should like tits, but, like, not if they're on a dead lady. Anyway,
so he,
I don't know what my point was.
He murderizes his sister, and then he...
with an ice pick, and then he drowns her because the ice pick doesn't quite finish the job.
Well, no, because the tub doesn't get full of blood. Did you notice that? He stabs
God,
her in the back, and it's crystal clear water.
Well, because the ice pick was keeping all the blood in.
Okay.
If he had pulled it out, then there would have been blood everywhere.
Yeah.
But, that's what it was, like a cork. Yeah.
So he's having a nice celebratory, quiet night to himself.
I like this little bit of, like, character business where Clu Gulager's sitting in the chair and he takes a sip of beer and then he just, like, for some reason, like, spits half of it out and just, like, lands on, like, his dirty muscle shirt. And I'm all like, I don't know why he did that. I don't know. He's a crazy person.
And then who should come rapping out his chamber door there but a fucking fetus monster baby?
It's a little monster baby spreading green ooze all over the floor. Stupid-looking zombie butt baby is what that is. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
and it's
some
just,
real fucking tasteless trauma shit, right? And
basically, yeah. This is one of the more tasteless, and they're front loading it with the tasteless thing here, and and then as soon as they show the zombie baby. They realize is all like, well, we're completely out of ideas. So it just zooms towards the camera and he screams and we hear some crunching, munching sounds, and we're led to believe that's Stanley, baby.
Yeah, wow.
What did
Makes you think, doesn't it?
What did we learn? Yeah, what moral did we learn on this? I don't know.
What's the lesson here?
I don't know. There was a bad guy. He did two bad things, and then a baby ate him.
Yeah,
a baby came out of the ground. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's going on here.
We're back in the library and you know. Vincent Price is telling the story like, yeah, this shit really happened, and the reporter, buys it, I guess. I'd say that's the dumbest fucking thing I ever heard.
Well, she says a very dumb line that, to his credit, Vincent Price immediately calls her on, but I definitely wrote this down because this is just poorly written dialogue is what this is. He tells her the story, and then she says, "I'm too old for nightmares." And I'm like, bitch, you're too old for stories. Everyone has nightmares. You're going to have nightmares when you're like 95. Like, everyone has. That's just a thing that happens that people have.
She was like, oh, that's pretty far-fetched. She's far-fetched or far-reaching.
That's right. That's another good one. Yeah.
You know what?
But then he says, like, you're never too old for nightmares. Like, yeah, thank you, Vincent.
You know what? I'm just going to say, Vincent Price, fuck, what a treasure. This guy.
He's the coolest fucking dude to ever
live.
He's
old as fuck in this movie. And he looks like a young man, like a kid in a candy store, just talking about all this horror stuff, right?
Well, this is interesting. There are two bits of trivia on the IMDb trivia board that seem to contradict each other.
He didn't like being in this?
One of them says that, where were we here? Jeff Burr was a young new filmmaker when he boldly approached Vincent Price and asked him to star in his film. Price was so impressed with Burr's confidence that he readily agreed to take on the role. But then another one says Vincent Price later expressed a strong dislike for the film in a letter written to his friend. He said that his agent misrepresented it and Price was trapped in it. Which, like, you must have spent 2 days on set, Vince. I mean, I have a feeling like a lot of that must probably come down to the fact that he was quite old and he probably was just grumpy about being on set. Or maybe he didn't like the movie. Maybe he didn't like how things were represented. I don't know. He didn't like the stories or whatever. But conflicting information about. Yeah. But even if he didn't like the movie, yes, you're right. He was an absolute pro. He's just great in these wraparound segments. Yeah. He talks about this doesn't get a story of its own, but he just offhandedly mentions that the librarian before him used to bring the wives of other men here, and then one time he dispatched them with an axe. And I love the way he pronounces the word axe.
Yeah.
One evening, a husband discovered them and dealt with their indiscretion with an axe. He disposed of their bodies right under there. At night, I swear that you can sometimes hear the lovers scream.
He's great. Yeah. I could listen to him for hours.
So we tease up the next story, which is about a man named Jesse who wakes up from his trailer park life, gets divorced from his trailer park wife, who rats him out to like some local gangsters or something, and they shoot him dead for running out on some gambling debts.
This story is called On the Run.
On the Run, okay.
And and a few things to say about this. This is the part of the movie where they set up like the establishing shot. We see like the outside of this trailer. And then we cut to Jesse sleeping in his bed. And this is the point in time when I say, fire this production designer. Because this is the second time where the outside of a location does not match the inside of the location. This looks like a love hotel. It looks like the hotel from Hot Dog the movie.
Exactly.
Like, what is this? This is not the inside of a trailer. I'm sorry.
Yeah. They managed to get like some 1950s cars for it, because I think each one of these stories
it gets older and older.
Yeah, it takes place further and further in the past. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Jesse is our deplorable protagonist of this story. He is played by Terry Kaiser.
Okay.
And I'm spoiler for the end of this story. They're like 15 minutes or whatever. In this story, he will end up playing a character who cannot die. 2 years after this, he will end up playing his most memorable character, someone who cannot live. He's Bernie in Weekend at Bernie's.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
Cannot live. He started out the movie alive.
He started off the movie alive, and then he was very much dead. I don't know. I was trying to do like a play on words thing, Jameson. I don't know.
So the gangsters shoot him through the heart, but he manages to escape into the woods and finds a boat.
Did they shoot him through the heart? I thought they shot
him in the back, but
through the shoulder because he's able to run away from them for a while,
like a mile and a half
amount. Yeah.
But yeah, he finds this boat, takes it out into the swamp, and he passes out and is resuscitated by a man named Felder.
But not before yet another dream sequence.
Oh yeah,
that's
with the
right,
zombie hands and shit.
Now, at the very least, this makes sense because he's lost a lot of blood and he's like hallucinating or whatnot.
Yeah.
But we see him like pass out in the boat in the swamp. We see someone get the boat and like drag it off screen after like a freeze frame. I thought the movie had frozen for like a half second.
Yeah, I was worried about
strange.
that too, but the music kept going.
I was writing something down and then I looked up and then it was just like frozen. I'm like, oh fuck, what happened?
This movie's not edited that great.
No, but then he has like the nightmare where like a bunch of like muddy hands come out of the water and drag him down. But then he wakes up screaming and he's actually in a cabin with this hermit swamp man named Felder, who is, unfortunately, I have to say, a magical black man. I mean, he is black and he possesses magic. I don't know how else to describe this character.
He certainly does. Like he does like all these like pentagram rituals every night. And I guess while Jesse's being nursed back to health by this guy, Jesse starts snooping around and he finds Felder's suitcase. Finds all these old news articles going all the way back to like 1871 and 1806.
He raises an eyebrow because Felder likes to carve these wooden animals, and he says, "What's this one?" He says, "That's a buffalo. You know, if you stand perfectly still, they just let you carve them." And then he goes, "You're crazy, old man. There haven't been buffalo around for centuries." And then earlier, he's drawn something on the floor. He does some nonsense words, and he drinks a little vial of liquid. And so Jesse starts putting two and two together, and he's saying, "Oh, like I think this guy
might be 200 years old.
Might have figured out the secret to eternal life." So despite the fact that he was left for dead and this man absolutely saved him, Jesse does not have a compassionate bone in his body. He is a deplorable son of a bitch through and through, and he immediately figures out how he can get one over on the guy who essentially
saved his life,
took him back from the brink of death. Yeah.
Teach me the secrets of immortality. I'm not going to do that. Do it, or I don't know.
What does he threaten him with?
I don't know exactly.
What do you threaten a man who can't die with? Because they do set some things up because he does.
He can bleed.
He can bleed. He cuts himself and he sees like a little bit of blood. And Jesse,
but I think by doing
saves that away for later.
I think so long as he does this ritual, like say once a month, he'll add like 50 years.
Yeah,
or whatever
he
to
has
his
to keep
life, right?
re-upping it.
Yeah.
Topping
it off.
I think basically,
Like
basically Jesse just says like, if you don't tell me this, I'll come. I'll make trouble for you.
Yeah.
Basically, I'll bring people back. Or
I will say
whatever.
this is like sort of the most economic of these stories. You know, it's the simplest.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say this is my favorite of the 4 stories.
Okay.
I like this one a lot. I think it's like it has the best sort of like morality twist.
Yeah.
To it. It has kind of like the most chilling final image.
Mm-hmm.
It's economical. It's basically just 2 guys in one location, so it's very classic Twilight Zone.
Yeah,
you know, it's something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Felder says, like, okay, fine, I'll do this ritual with you. And then apparently they spend 3 weeks trying to do all this. And Jesse's like, I don't feel any different. This isn't working. You're holding out on me.
Well, Felder's trying to teach him like the words for the incantation, which
Jesse just doesn't have the patience for it.
I know, but like it's all like you gotta teach me how to be immortal. All right, first you gotta say these words. Oh fuck, already.
Homework.
So many rules. It's like this fucking guy.
What an entitled asshole.
He's just yeah.
So instead he bashes Felder over the head and takes him out to the swamp and ties like a rock to his feet and says, "Tell me the secret. Tell me that special extra step that you're not telling me."
You ain't no Superman. I know you can bleed.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like he threatens him with his life. It's all like, you gotta give me that special juice. I know it's the juice.
Yeah.
The juice is what does it.
I need Michael's magic stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
He won't give it to him, so he throws him overboard, and then he goes back.
Somewhat by accident. You
Yeah,
get the idea that he didn't actually want to kill Felder. He just wanted to threaten Felder because as soon as he goes over, he's immediately all like, fuck, now I'm not going to get the juice now. What am I going to do? And he panics, and the only thing he can think to do is go back to the shack and just start tearing it apart and looking for the special sauce.
But who should show up but Felder? And he bashes him over the head with an oar.
Big old mud man. And
yeah.
He just like, and then when Jesse once again wakes up, he's tied to the pentagram. And then we get
who you could see this coming.
You can see this coming a mile away. I also want to say, like, right before he reveals what ended up happening, Felder lodges a great insult at him. He calls him a mule ass.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Yeah.
I gotta start using that in more sentences.
It's kind of redundant, isn't it?
Mule ass. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's the ass of a mule? I don't know. It's an ass squared.
Isn't a mule also an ass?
Well, I know a donkey is an ass.
Yeah.
And a mule is a donkey? I think they're all the same.
Whatever.
I
but spoiler alert, the only reason Jesse survived that gunshot wound and hanging out in the swamp is because Felder already did perform the immortality spell or whatever on him.
It's a great twist. Like he literally says, like, the thing that you tried to kill me over, you had the entire time. And I can't kill you. And he says, like, the amount that I gave you, I figure you'll probably live for another like 60, 70 years. But you're not going to have a good time while doing it.
I'm going to make you suffer for it.
Yeah, because you tried to kill me, and I know that if I don't fuck you up, you're just going to keep coming back and making trouble for me.
Here's my question. If he did perform the immortality thing on him, why did he fuck around with him for 3 weeks trying to teach him, like, the incantation and shit? Why didn't he just admit that he already made him immortal?
I don't know. I feel like maybe he was, like, trying to find, like, the good in him. Like, he figured, like, if he spent, like, enough time with him, he would have like figured something out.
But it's already too late. He already cast a spell on him.
Or maybe he already was like starting to get like reservations about it. Like after like a couple of days of Jesse waking up, he's realizing this guy has said some things, and I don't know if I agree with him. Maybe I should hang out with him a little more and try and like I don't know, try to see the good in him to make sure that I didn't.
Before I send him out into the wild, all immortal and everything.
But eventually he does not. Well, I don't know. He could also there's also the possibility that he could just not tell Jesse that he's immortal and just be all like, all right, go live the rest of your life, and let him figure it out on his own. Because like I don't know, if I was Felder, I would let Jesse. I know he's got like a nice little shack going on there, but after
he's got a shack in the middle of the swamp. It's not a good life.
It's nice for him,
I guess.
He seems to like it.
Yeah.
But like as soon as Jesse took off, I would be all like, well, time to move.
Yeah. Because
this guy found me once, and it's time to relocate.
Yeah.
But too much other shit happens, and sometimes you gotta You gotta chop up your house guest with an axe.
Yeah.
And
So that's
lots of little bitty pieces.
Yeah, so that's that story.
Well, and it ends on like this, and like you think it's just gonna end with him like chopping him up, but like it adds like an extra little bit of coda where like he throws like just his torso into a sack, and he throws the sack on like a road, and people pick him up, and you assume that's where it's gonna end, but then it cuts to like a hospital, and like the doctor's all like, for all intents and purposes, this man should be dead, but his heart is still beating. This poor bastard. And then we cut over and we just see Jesse, and he's all bloody, and it zooms in on his eye, and a single tear comes down. I'm all like, good, chilling, economical horror storytelling.
Yep, good. That's a good one of the better ones.
Good. One of the better ones.
Yeah. Followed up by one of the worst. Perhaps the worst.
Perhaps the worst? I don't know. I think we can debate whether this one or the one that comes after it is my least favorite. But certainly the issue with the next story, although should we say, does anything happen with Vincent Price? This is a really short interlude. Like he kind of goes like immediately into the next story.
Right.
But the problem with I didn't write down anything about the Vincent Price thing. Anyway,
he just sets up the next story.
Yeah. This is the one outlier in the sense that it's the only story where the protagonist is not a horrible person. In fact, she's actually quite lovely. She's a sweet, innocent thing.
Just caught up in a real bad situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the end of it kind of has like a little bit of a sour taste. Was all like, well, she didn't really deserve that.
Yeah,
she didn't deserve that at all. Yeah. Which like, it's nice to add like a little bit of variety. But yeah, I would say that this next one suffers from being a short film because they introduced too many ideas in this segment, and we kind of need a little more explanation as to what's going on.
Exactly. This doesn't lend itself to a small 15-minute thing because there's a lot of setup and world building that needs to happen with an idea like this.
Yeah. So this one takes place at a traveling carnival called Lovecraft's Traveling Amusements.
You could hear the eye roll when I saw that
in a
title.
segment titled Lovecraft's Traveling Amusements. That's just what they did. Yeah, it's a little bit on the nose.
Yeah.
I'll definitely say that.
Yeah, so this nice young lady, Amaryllis Caulfield, is checking out the freak show at this carnival, and apparently she has been dating the glass eater of this traveling
which like,
freak show.
Date the glass eater, sure, and like we see her like smooching like a glass eater after the show. I would not do that.
No,
I would not kiss a glass eater. What if he didn't floss?
Yeah, well,
that's my mouth that's cut now.
I mean, stuff like that was always, it was a scam. Here they're biting down on like sugar glass and candy and stuff like that.
And it's there's lots of close-up shots of the guy chewing glass, which low-key kind of the grossest thing that happens in this movie.
Yeah.
Kind of the thing that really kind of like turned my stomach quite a bit.
Yeah.
Especially when he swallowed the razor blade. I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I know that there's like a trick involved in it, but like I don't want to see that.
Yeah, no, and eventually what we're going to see is like the close-up of his mouth, and you're going to see it get cut up or something like that. Back when I think, when I got this movie pegged. But no, apparently this is a legit magic thing that's keeping him.
This is just like I mean, we find out eventually what it is, but like from Amaryllis's standpoint, it's like...
It's a party trick.
It's a thing that he just knows how to do.
Yeah.
It's like a thing that he figured out. Who knows how?
Yeah.
Maybe he's explained it to her, but like
she's got the hots for him. He says that the carnival won't let me be with you. You gotta go, sister.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Anyway, get out of here. I have to go to the coolest poker game of all time.
It's poker night. Sorry, honey.
As soon as he went there, I'm all like, "Fuck, deal me in."
Yeah.
Where you see
two little people, a man
bevy of the
with
other
no
things.
face.
Well, not just any little person. The great Angelo Rizzuto, who of course played Master, one half of Master Blaster, in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. But also appeared in the classic, controversial horror film from the 1930s, Todd Browning's Freaks. In this, he's playing somewhat a similar character to what he's playing in that, so a little bit of a nod to how he began, and he started with like a carnival freak show movie, and he's ending with a carnival freak show movie because this was his final movie. But I love this guy. He's just got like one of like the best voices, just one of like the best presences in the world, and he's like the carnival barker, and he's like step right up, he eats glass like you eat your Wheaties. But and then there's a guy with no face whose name is No Face, like he's a Dick Tracy villain.
So this carnival is a lot like it's a ship of the damned situation.
Yes.
So the person who runs the carnival is a witch, I believe.
There's a witch, and she has a little toady servant, and their names, of course, are Snake Woman and Leonard.
You know, I think I saw them open for.
I just loved that.
Yeah,
that was something that I wrote down, and then I laughed at what I wrote down, but it's just their character names.
Yeah. Now, I'm assuming the setup here is that she's like one of those demonic characters where you bargain your soul for something, but in exchange for that, you now are trapped into servitude.
All of the carnies have like a troubled past. They're either like murderers or they're on the run from the law. Something like that. She
said one thing to Burnt Face Man.
Yeah.
That the judge wouldn't be this lenient on you. I was like the only outlet you have. You owe me this. Like you are now like a living freak in my show.
And she says to the carnival barker, "It's like, well, the sheriff was here earlier, and I told him that you weren't here, but I could always call him." And he's all like, "No, don't do that." And so like you get the idea pretty quick what's going on.
I was curious as to what the Glass Eater's deal was, because it makes it sound like he just straight up asked her for the ability to eat glass. And she granted him that power in exchange for eternal servitude.
I don't know. This is the thing. Is all like,
I gave you the power to eat glass and metal, and I can take it away.
I don't actually need the segment to be longer, but for it to actually make any sort of sense, it kind of needs to be a little bit longer. We kind of need to know what's going on. I have several questions. I have so many questions, and most of them pertain to Leonard. Yeah. I don't know what that dude's deal is at all. Because he's just like this like smiling, giggling little person. I don't know what his relationship to the Snake Woman is. He's just like her...
Like familiar or her Renfield or something?
Yeah, he is her Renfield, basically. Yeah. That's a good way of explaining it. But, yeah.
Anyways, Glass Eater Man and Amaryllis, they go to the graveyard to make out.
I'm sure the Glass Eater Man has a character name, but we're just going to call him Glass Eater Man.
They go to the graveyard to make out on a grave, and as he starts caressing her body, he accidentally starts cutting her up because Snake Woman curses him where every time he touches her, glass and screws come out of his fingers.
Yeah, it's screws, which like... I needed to see him swallow some screws.
Yeah.
And honestly,
I kind of gathered it, though.
It would have added a little bit of variety to his act. Because his act is pretty pretty
stale.
Yeah, because like the act basically and the crowd loves it, but like the act consists of him coming out like, "Hello everyone, I'm going to eat this piece of glass,"
and he's working shtick like
I'm going to eat this piece of glass, and then I'm all like, I'm going to have a little shave. I'll shave the outside, and then I'll shave the inside. Delicious. What'll I do for my finale? How about I eat more glass? Yeah. It's just kind of like, all right, after
we got it. Yeah.
After like the fourth time, I got to eat glass.
Well, you only paid a nickel for that,
exactly.
Right? So they go back to the carnival, and the snake lady just says, "Yeah, I own your ass." Then he kills Leonard.
Well, yeah, it's very funny. It's
because he says like, "We can never escape from this lady. Let's try to escape."
Yeah, it's a very poorly plotted segment, because basically what happens is he has like a date with Amaryllis. He goes to where the snake lady is, and she says, "Don't see her." Then he goes to see her. Then he comes back. He says, "I'm really warning you, don't see her this time. You're really gonna regret it." And then he leaves, and then he immediately runs off with her because she just It is a very funny cut, because the snake woman has just like threatened his life with like the most like horrible pain imaginable. Like if you lead, like you'll know what true pain is. And then he walks out, and then Amaryllis immediately runs in from off camera, and he just goes, "What are you doing here?" It was a very funny line delivery. Because I was kind of asking the same question.
The car's this way. Is like, you just didn't listen to this guy.
Yeah.
So they run off to a motel together.
Well, but first Leonard gets in their way.
Yeah. So little person stabs him, and we find out that he's got an eyeball on his chest.
He's got an eyeball on his chest, and
he's always watching. I don't know how he's always going to watch when one of his eyes is covered up like that.
I guess that was his whole deal.
Yeah.
I guess his thing is that he liked to watch, and so she gave him a third eye. Yeah, that was usually covered with a shirt. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. And then they run off and
to some Fleabag motel.
And the Carnival Barker goes, "Now I'm bigger than you are, ha ha ha, because you're dead."
At the motel, they start making out again, and it goes even worse than the last go around.
Much worse. Yes.
Practical Effects City happens, and his body just explodes all the sharp things he's ever eaten.
Because I assume they just lived inside of him because it's some sort of snake woman magic.
Yeah.
There might be like voodoo involved. I don't know.
Yeah,
it looks like she has a voodoo
doll or something.
Maybe at one point it makes him do stuff. But it's like, so is there glass inside the voodoo doll? Like how? I don't know. I don't know how any of this works.
Yeah. When he exploded, like the hotel room just got full of all like the splatter effects. Like the special effects guys were going nuts on this. And then like glass is shooting out and breaking like all the lamps and stuff. I'm surprised Amaryllis didn't get cut up during that.
It was really, it was actually kind of hard to tell specifically what was going on with him. The only way I was able to figure it out is because there's a very brief shot where the razor blade comes out. And that's when I'm like, oh, okay, everything that's inside of him is coming out now. But it's like, what does this mean? What are the implications of this? Is he always walking around with glass inside of him?
Just can't digest it?
Does he ever pass it? And like,
if he's ever walking around, you just hear a lot of jingling and...
Pretty much, yeah. But all that glass had to go somewhere, and it came out, and he full of holes now, holes and blood. And then the weird ending of this is that the snake lady finds them in the motel,
laughs at him,
and she just walks around the room. It's funny. She comes into the room and does like a circle, like she's on a runway, and she's just going like good, yes,
does her catwalk.
And we assume maybe that's the end of it. And then like the final shot is that Amaryllis is now in the freak show, and she's the human pincushion, and it's like,
was that her only option?
Was that her thing?
Does she go to her for that?
Now, like, as you said, Jameson, if like the glass had come out of the glass eater and gone into her, is that what they mean? That she got like a bunch of stuff stuck in her? But no, they're like very specific, fine-looking pins that like come out. It's it's like a pinhead type thing or whatever.
What I was wondering is, you get trapped into this freak show when you want something from the snake woman.
She didn't want anything.
But I was thinking, okay, so what this is telling me is, in exchange for bringing her boyfriend back to life and for them to be together, she's voluntarily entering into the freak show. I think that would have made a better ending, or at least a little bit more consistent with what we've been set up.
We don't see him resurrected.
No, she's just lost her boyfriend, and she figures the next logical step is to join the freak show.
Like, well, I got no other.
I got no other option.
I had everything tied up in this one guy. I'm not gonna lie. This is kind of where I was going. She also appears to be like frozen in place, like almost as if she's like hypnotized. To
if she moves, the pins are gonna fall out.
I suppose that is something. Yes. But I mean, and not that I don't know, not that impressive of a freak. I mean, I can put pins in me. I'm not going to.
No,
I can.
Yeah,
I don't feel like it.
We swing back to the library for one last scene where Vincent Price says that this town was founded at the end of the Civil War, and then we go to our final story.
Yeah.
Civil War era, starring...
no one in particular. I've run out. I've run out of like famous faces in this. You can rest easy.
All right, fine. Well, I will say that it is featuring Cameron Mitchell, who doesn't mean much to us, but we're big fans of Red Letter Media, and they very much zero in on Cameron Mitchell whenever he shows
up. Do they? Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're huge fans of him just appearing as like a crotchety, ornery, drunken man in the later half of his career when they cover movies with him.
Well, hey, there you go. That's a little bit of knowledge that I did not know.
Yeah.
This is the last segment of the movie. Usually when you get to like these horror anthologies, by the time like the last one you roll around, you're kind of all like, all right, you start to just kind of like check your watch. I like the concept of this.
I very much like the concept of this. I think like you say your favorite is the one with Felder and Jesse.
Yes. Yeah.
That is very good. I kind of like the concept of this one enough that I think it puts it over the top for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And I think it's just like the most chilling, and it's not supernatural. And I think a lot of these movies kind of lost a bit of the footing when you introduce like supernaturalism and magic and shit. And
you're right. This is all
This is all just like
the horror of war.
The horror of war, the terror of inhumanity.
Which is kind of weird because the sort of setup of this story is that this is the story of the founding of the town. This is how Oldfield began, and there's nothing supernatural involved in it. So it's just kind of all like, it started with something evil, and then I guess supernatural shit just kind of like gravitated towards it over time.
Yeah, it's
stuff. But anyway, this is one set after the Civil War. We open on 4 soldiers, and this is a segment called 4 Soldiers.
4 Soldiers. Okay.
They're not. The reason that they didn't give these titles is because all the titles are pretty bad. They're all pretty bad.
Yeah, I could have done something a little better than that.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's the small infantry and they of Union soldiers, and they come across Confederates. And the commander, played by Cameron Mitchell, he orders his men to fire and kill the Southern boys.
And then there's one young soldier, Pike, who says like they're waving white flags, like you have to obey wartime rules or whatever. And these 3 other guys are just scumbags.
Yeah, so I didn't see no flag, and they shoot him dead. They go over there and they find out that the war is over. So they killed.
Yeah, there's a piece of paper because the introductory dialogue is that they got separated from General Grant and they don't know. They've been wandering around in the wood. They are, for all intents and purposes, deserters.
They're AWOL. Yeah.
They're AWOL. Yeah, exactly. If the war was still going on, they would be in big trouble.
Absolutely. Which is why they're in no hurry to go back, and they're just talking about all the men who died in the war.
They literally
their wives could use a good.
They literally say, "We're gonna go raping. We're gonna go a raping. Is where we're going."
Pike won't have any of it, and he says, "War's over. I'm going home." And Sarge shoots him. He's just a deplorable fucking human being.
Yes, Gallon, I believe, is this character's name. Cameron Mitchell. Yes.
So they decide that we're gonna go a couple hundred miles.
Find a town.
There's a town here nearby. Like just
by the name of Oldfield.
Oldfield, some little settlement. And as they approach it, I guess they get bombarded with cannon fire, or they step on some Civil War era landmines, and they get knocked unconscious. And they awaken in this compound farmhouse run entirely by children.
The most terrifying monster you could possibly imagine.
Well, it's
multiple kids.
It's unsettling.
It is very unsettling. It's the Children of the Corn type thing.
But or Lord of the Flies.
But
it's kids who are making the rules, and they're not going to be swayed by any kind of reason or compassion or logic, because they're just kids and they're making up their own rules.
And they're specifically wartime orphans, and a bunch of them have like horrible injuries and whatnot, and they're sort of like the main boy who is wearing a Confederate uniform, and he's sort of like giving the orders and whatnot, and you can tell that they figured out a society and there are no adults left, and and they capture these 3 men, and you can pretty much assume that not good things are in store for these guys.
Yeah, one guy is sort of just left on a surgical table for them to steal body parts from.
Oh, no, and then the other guy, like, when they're, like, tied up with rope or whatever, and, like, the main kid is, like, don't test me, you won't like me when I'm angry or whatever, and the one guy
stabs him in the balls!
He's just a little shit, no, but just stabs him in the dick!
Yeah.
Right in the dick! And then the next time we see that guy, he's on a table, and the 2 kids are all like, he's not gonna live through the night. Yeah. He got stabbed in the dick! That's not good!
Yeah.
So he's gone.
Yeah.
He's down for the count. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
The sergeant is kept alive in the attic and always said that you're going to have to meet the magistrate. The magistrate has big plans for you. He plans like this entire.
The one who
he's our leader. He's the leader of the
Beyond
bunch
the
here.
Rose. It's very Children of the Corn.
Yeah.
It makes more sense. It's not. There's no supernatural, as you say. There's no supernatural element. This.
It's a cult.
Could happen. Yes.
Yeah. It's very improbable, but it's not ghosts.
I mean, if this set of circumstances played out the way they did, who knows? Like this is entirely possible.
Yeah,
to a certain degree, you'd have to get like a bunch of like real psycho kids to get to that. I mean, most kids are psychos, so that's fair.
There's this one little girl with a crutch and an eye patch who has somewhat of a soft spot for Sarge because she
and a cough and a limp.
A real Tiny Tim situation here. She's not going to live through the night either.
She's holding a teddy bear with like one eye that's like falling, like dangling off of it. Yeah, exactly.
But she's got a soft spot for him because he reminds her of her dad. And he's trying to exploit that by saying, like, if you untie my ropes, we can get out of here together and we can go to the city. I know some good military surgeons who can fix up your leg and
Telling
you
her
can live a
everything she
normal
wants to
life. Yeah,
hear.
I can adopt you. And she's like, really? Yes, really. Did you notice that it didn't look like Cameron Mitchell was tied up at all? He's like waving his arms in the chair.
He's very loose in the chair. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, like they get captured by the kids and like immediately, because like
Kids don't know how to tie good knots.
I know there's lots. Well, I mean, you forget there's no television back then, so
Yeah.
like tying knots was kind of the only thing that
That's
they had
right.
to do.
Yeah.
But still, these are 3 grown adults, and like I don't know, but like whatever. I guess there's like a lot of them.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Here's an interesting point that I was kind of like, because like these are very clearly the children of Confederate soldiers, but there's a couple of black kids there.
Yeah.
And like the kids seem to treat them as equals, but like, is the implication that this used to be like a plantation? Perhaps. I don't know. I just think it's kind of an interesting little detail to throw that in, because like their parents must have been slave owners.
Yeah.
But like the black kids
or they
seem to have.
conscripted the slaves to fight for the
That's true.
Confederates.
Because the black kids seem to have the exact same amount of agency as everyone else. So I guess like.
Well, it's
this kid leader is all like, all right, first of all, no racism in our society.
Yeah, the whole thing is like the world is being ruined by the adults.
Yes.
And so we as the kids are going to
we'll stop doing that.
Yeah. So little girl unties the sergeant, and then he... Oh, God.
He snaps her neck.
He
like
snaps
a
her neck,
twig.
but he kisses her on the mouth before doing that.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. That was gross, yeah.
It's just so fucking gross.
I mean, yeah, he's just a big
Jeez.
old creep. Yeah, exactly, yeah. We're not supposed to like these people.
No. So he escapes the compounds, and he sees one of the men in his infantry has been reduced to a torso that the kids are using as a piñata.
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
pretty fucking grim.
We also forgot to mention the scene where with the little girl with the one eye, the other guy is tied up to a thing, and the main boy or whatever is all like, I need you to come in here. I have like a little surprise for you. He says, take off your eye patch. And then he just holds up the dude's bloody fucking eye with like the vein attached to it. And he just tries to shove it into her face.
Yeah, that's the
And
problem
it's
with
like-
a society run by kids. None of these guys are
think
doctors.
things through. Yeah, exactly. That's not going to keep.
Yeah, all this kid logic here.
That
Yeah.
will just rot in her head. But they don't get that far because she's all like, you know what? I'm less into that than you think I am.
So Sarge tries to get away, but he is stopped by Pike.
This is very stupid.
Yes.
This didn't
Why
need to happen. I don't know why.
He was still alive. He knew to come to this place.
Even though
and
was
then he knew,
very dead the last time we saw him.
like must have found Felder. You know what? This could have been a good opportunity to bring back Felder.
To explain where he came from.
Yeah, he
exactly.
was around for this or something. Yeah.
I don't know.
Whatever.
It would make sense. It's the only thing that makes sense.
Well, that's probably just a sign of like different people worked on different segments and there was no real overlap.
This movie only has 2 credited writers, so
well, then,
I don't know.
What the fuck, you guys? There's a layup for you. Anyways, Pike comes back, incapacitates Sarge, and then is smart enough to just not stick around.
And just go. Because it's so weirdly edited, too, because Pike, like, he's trying to get away. Pike comes out of nowhere, whacks him with, like, a club or something. He says, like, you're a real piece of shit. And then the kids... like pile on top of him, but like Pike doesn't have enough time to get away. One assumes that Pike also guy, but we never see Pike again.
Nope.
And it's like any number of things could have stopped the sergeant from getting away. I don't know why we needed to bring back this clearly dead character from earlier.
Yeah.
But anyway.
They take the Sarge up to the attic to meet the magistrate, and it turns out it's just an effigy of parents.
It's like their 2 parents. I guess there must. I guess
like their heads are on
Yeah.
like another body, but they're like held up by pikes and everything.
they made like a little 2-head mannequin. type deal
and they say
situation.
like, this is like not so much like our leader, so much as like our inspiration to do like a better world, and it starts by killing the adults that come to our compound. So they burn Cameron Mitchell alive.
And it's also strongly implied that they're all cannibals as well. Because I'm pretty sure the little girl brings Cameron Mitchell something to eat.
Yeah.
And it's strongly implied that it's one of his buddies. Because, yeah, it's some sort of, like, jerky thing. He says, like, what is this? And she says, it's something special. Yeah, and then he burns alive, and one assumes they had a big old barbecue. And then there's just some off-screen dialogue that just says, like,
on the spot, we'll build a new town.
We will build a town with our small child hands.
Yeah. On this field filled with the bodies of old people. Hence the name Old Field.
Oh, my God, I didn't even think of that. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Also, there's like 8 of them.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of kids.
It's enough to take down one adult, I guess.
Yeah.
And so we're back in the library, and I don't know. They're
wrapping things up.
Lady says, like, oh, yeah, all those stories worthy of Lovecraft and Poe, and Vincent Price, of course, has I'll drink to Lovecraft and Poe.
There's masters
of horror.
It's several decades before the internet, and no one will realize what a horrible racist Lovecraft is yet for several decades. So
I'm sure he toasted to those men a lot.
Of course he did. Well, of course he toasted to Pope. He has Poe to thank for the middle half of his career, pretty much. Also, if you're going to name check Lovecraft at the end of your movie, you can't name the traveling carnival after Lovecraft. You need to pick one. You need to make a choice. But there's a very chilling moment here, and like Vincent Price just sells this line so fucking good. Where they're talking about like all the people who come through here are like infected by this evil, and that's what happened to my niece, and that like she was doomed because she took part in like the horrible parade. And then the reporter says, "How do you stay away from it?" And just like dead face, he just goes,
"How do you know that I did?"
Yeah.
And it's very good. And then he like lets it linger for like a second. He's all like, "No, JK.
Yeah.
I'm fine."
Yeah, it's like, so Vincent Price is going to murder her? No.
Yeah.
The reporter's going to murder him?
But he knows how to sell a line like that.
Yeah.
And then this additionally confusing
This
coda.
is a wrap it up kind of
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, so your niece, she and I were pen pals, and she told me that you influenced her to go and kill all these people.
Whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah, I don't know. And so this is me enacting her revenge on her behalf, and she stabs him with the fakest looking knife and the fakest looking neck.
She throws the knife at him. It's a real fucking like like overhand type situation. And the knife goes into Vincent Price's neck. Once again, no blood comes out because we don't have that.
Not in this R-rated movie.
We got some blood in this movie, but like we only had like so much.
Yeah, and and his closing lines are "Welcome to Oldfield."
Because I guess the idea is that whatever evil was in his niece is now transferred over to this reporter.
Sure.
Why not?
Okay.
I guess we can go with that.
Yeah, and that's the movie.
And that's from a whisper to a scream. So, Jameson, did you think this movie had a certain something, or was it just a whole lot of nothing?
Well, the thing with anthologies is that some of them do have a little something. It's tough to say. I think like if you were to clump them all together, good and the bad, it's not a great watch start to finish, but those 2 stories that you and I mentioned as like sort of the high marks, those are worth checking out. I don't think you need to watch the Stanley one. I don't think you need to watch the dumb one about the carnival freaks.
I would say definitely watch the wraparound segments, but the thing is, without the other stories, the wraparound segments don't last very long, and they don't have like a ton of context.
And in the context of like the actual plot of the movie, the wraparound stuff is the actual plot of this whole movie.
For whatever it is.
So it's just 2 people talking in a library.
What I was surprised is that like I was under the assumption that the 4th story was going to be about the niece.
It should have been. It should have explained that whole bride and groom thing at the
exactly,
start.
because I have no idea what that's referencing.
Yeah.
It's just like a pleasant, I guess it was like a pleasant memory that she was thinking of before she died, before like the lethal injection happened. But like still, did she kill her husband? I don't know. I don't know what this is.
It also would have helped if there was a through line that linked all the stories together, not just that it all takes place in the same town.
Yeah, well, like you said, Felder should be in all of them.
Felder should have come back a couple of times. Maybe there's like a prominent locket that shows. There is in that last one that the little girl has. And and then we find out that the locket is actually a Vincent Price. I don't know.
Or he has the locket because he's like the town historian or whatever. I don't know. There's things that they could have done. There is
something
some massaging they could have done.
Yeah,
in this.
there is something in the fact that there are good stories in this that could have been better. But that's all I
think you said it all. I think you absolutely said it. I think that's you flip a coin when it comes to anthology movies. You always go into them with the assumption that one of them or more than one of them won't be as good as the other ones. For the most part, I think these 4 stories are roughly of the same quality. Even the ones that I didn't like had elements that I liked of them, you know? Like, I like...
Even Stanley?
Yeah, because I like that guy's performance.
Okay.
I mean, like, yeah, the ending's like real dumb or whatever, but you know, like I like a crazy unhinged killer type deal. I don't know. Which is the weakest one? Is it Stanley or is it the
Carnival one,
Glass Eater?
I think it's the Glass Eater.
It might be the Glass Eater one, just because that one doesn't. It's like the other because. They're all
it left me most confused.
The most confused, and they're all of a piece because they're all about like the worst people that have bad shit happen to them, except that one where it's just kind of
bad
like,
thing happens to a good person.
A good person, yeah, exactly, yeah. But you know what? I liked it. I didn't hate it. I had some good spooky fun with this. Yeah, wasn't too bad. It's got a little certain something.
Okay,
we'll just call it that.
Fair enough. Okay.
All right, great.
Well, that's our Vincent Price episode.
There we
everybody.
go.
Yeah.
Nice, short, and concise. I think we spent too much time spinning our wheels on this one.
We'll
see.
We'll find out when we edit this.
We'll see what happens in the edit. We'll fix it in the edit. But yes, that was From a Whisper to a Scream, directed by Jeff Burr. If you enjoyed this episode of The Fright Is This, oh my God, I just said the old fucking podcast title. It's time to go
Nothing
home.
Spookies.
Nothing Spookies. Please listen to our back catalog where we are called The Fuck Is This.
Yeah.
Shit, damn,
mom,
poop, mom, the worst swear word of all, mom. We'd like to thank Joel Flynn and Luke Schuss and everyone over at Podstream Studios for letting us use their equipment. Next episode will be some more spooky fun where we'll cover the career of another horror-based actor, and maybe we'll have a guest. Maybe we'll have...
We're definitely having a guest.
Returning guest. Well, I never want to... You know, schedules fall apart. Right now, we have the guest on the docket, which is why I don't want to say their name.
Gotcha.
Because anything could fucking happen. We've made promises in the past that we've had to backpedal on, but the plan is to have a returning guest. An old favorite from back in the day, so I'm really excited for that. Who could it be?
Back from the dead!
I hope not.
No.
I've got a good career.
Well, I hope they just come back.
I hope they just come back. That would be nice. Sometimes they come back.
Yeah.
Sometimes they come back for more. And on that note, my name is Kaz.
My name is Jameson, and in the immortal words of the late, great Vincent Price.
Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Creatures crawl in search of blood to terrorize y'all's neighborhood. And whosoever shall be found without the soul for getting down, must stand and face the hounds of hell and rot inside a corpse's shell. The foulest stench is in the air, the funk of 40,000 years, and grizzled ghouls from every tomb are closing in to seal your doom. And though you fight to stay alive, your body starts to shiver, for no mere mortal can resist the evil of the thriller.